Well, good morning, folks. We are live on YouTube, Odyssey, and Float. I'll let you know right up front. If you're on Float or Odyssey today, I can't see your comments. It's not because I don't actually think they're, platforms with more love for creators than YouTube, but YouTube has the most viewers, and YouTube goes straight into StreamYard. So I'm able to see your comments there. I will occasionally maybe highlight a comment like my buddy David. When you hear me say my buddy David on the podcast, that's the one I'm talking about right there. He wants to know if Wisconsin officially has been absorbed into Canada yet. I don't think so. I don't think so, Dave. But I really will not be taking your comments for the first half of the stream. I will be going through an outline that I'll be sharing with you with screen share. And then I'll take about 30, and then I will give you about 30 to ask me questions. When we get into the 30-minute Q&A period, put your questions in all caps. If you're listening to the podcast, obviously that doesn't apply to you. But from here on, everything will, except a few little things I may do some screen share with. Anyway, guys, this has been an interesting week, and we have a lot to talk about. So let's get on into it. I want to start off with, on Monday, I did a show on restoring America and 10 things we can do to restore America. And there's probably like another 20 I could easily add on. Maybe that'll become a series. But it caused a lot of follow-up questions. And I basically said, everybody should learn some hard skills. That by the time you're 20, you should have 20 hard skills, right? And those 20 hard skills could be, they could even be technical skills. They could be skills like how to code. But if you knew 3 programming languages, that's not 3 hard skills. Then coding becomes a hard skill. Knowing how to use tools and do basic construction, that would be a hard skill, etc. And I had a lot of people say, could you give us a list of hard skills? Well, I've actually done shows that do just that. But I thought, what if I gave people maybe 5 skills for their kids this week and a little bit of idea about why? So let's start off with the first one so you don't come to Jack and go, Jack, what should I learn? Because the problem with that is, guys, that I'm telling you basically what the pillars of your passions in life are, right? So your skills should be pillars around your passions. Now, that does not mean that every skill you have needs to be that, but there should be some group of them that enable you to do what you do. So for me, a hard skill is public speaking, because I love to teach. I love to do what I'm doing right now. I love to interact with people. I've built my whole life, right, on building this podcast and this YouTube channel and everything else that I do. Long before I was a podcaster, I would do somewhere between 8 and 10 keynote speaking engagements a year at all types of large trade shows and things like that. I love to do this. So I built that skill set because I love to do it. The other side of it, though, is I came to love to do it because I built the skill set. So you go broad, and as you're going broad, you find things that you really feel good about, not just that you're good at doing, but you feel good when you're doing them. And then you start broadening off of those. But I guess it does have a good thing to have a starting point. So here's 5 I'm going to give you for your kids. And I think this is a really good list. And the first one will help you yourself if you develop it, is how to do real research. Because if you can do real research, then a lot of questions like, well, what should I learn to do, become, oh, look at all these things I want to do. And now how do I figure out which ones to do first? And so I think that the problem that we have today in our country comes from the fact that schools define research for our children so that the research will lead to the conclusion the school wants the child to reach. And that's not research. Research is, if you're actually researching an issue, especially like a hot button issue, let's say it has something to do with the COVIDs or something like right now, and you're researching like, is this new pill from, Pfizer or Merck or whatever really just a copy of ivermectin, or does it do the same thing a different way? Like, what is it? And is there any validity to it at all, or is it crap? If you have a preconceived idea of what your results are going to be and you're emotional about the issue, you need to be reading some things that make you pissed off, that make you think, well, that can't be true. And if you don't read that too, you haven't done real research. You need to learn how to dig into things. You need to learn how, like, when you're researching a topic and you find a thing that's critical to your conclusion or your hypothesis, that critical thing is researched as hard as the total subject. And if you don't do that, again, you're not actually doing real research. And this is something that this country sucks at. And it's why so much of what's been done to people in the last year and a half was able to be done. Because if you can do real research, none of the information you need to realize how much bullshit you're dealing with is hard to find. You just need to be willing to actually read both sides. And if you're on the side of logic and reason with this issue, just understand that doesn't mean you'll be on logic and reason with the side of the next issue. Teach your children to do this, and then instead of telling them what they should think, when they ask you something, make them use their research skills so they're practicing the skill you gave them, so that they come to their own conclusion. And when they differ with your conclusion, ask them to explain to you why. And then if you know they're wrong, then help them research why they're wrong instead of telling them they're wrong. And someday they might actually prove you wrong, and then you know you've created a young master at research. I think cooking and knife skills. Like, what's amazed me is how some of the biggest YouTube channels out there today, I'm talking millions of subs, are cooking channels. And then I start looking at them, and like, you can actually kind of dissect a creator's channel, and you can see right where they blew up. And when I start doing that and I start looking at some of the biggest cooking channels on YouTube, there's two places they blew up in the last few years. One, we'll talk a little bit more about later, but it's around keto and low carb. All right, so that was just a big trend. But the other one that's actually more interesting to me is when they started talking about really cooking well, on your own, cheap. Those three things: cooking well, completely on your own with no processed anything, just, you know, starting from scratch and doing it inexpensively. If you look at like this, like Pro Home Cooks now, it's the guy, the one, there was two brothers doing it. One kind of bifurcated off and did other things, and the other brother took the channel over. But when they did their whole series, like for college students, on how you can live on like $20 a week and eat really well, it blew up. Why do you think that is? Because college kids are broke. College kids have always been broke. But when I was a 20-something, I wasn't in college, but when I was a 20-something, I could cook. Most of the people I knew in my age bracket could cook, at least basically. But like, kids today don't even know how to cook. Well, this is a life skill, guys. So everybody should know how to do that. How to budget and set savings goals. And I'm talking about down to the point of saying, okay, this is what you want, Billy. All right, let's bring out Excel. And let's work on Excel together. Let's take all that math that you've been screwing with all week, where you have to, you know, multiply and divide before you add and subtract, and then parentheses and brackets and all that base that's not even algebra, but it's the base that enables algebra. And you're like, what do I ever use this for? Let's teach you how to use those formulas instead of like solving one that somebody gave you, how to build your own formula. So that later, Billy, if you want to run a business, you can actually sit down and figure out, well, how much can I afford to pay to produce this service or build this product? And then how much am I going to make per customer? And then how many customers do I need to live a really good life? And how many customers do I need to build a really great life? And then once you understand that, you could actually, as you're looking at gaining customers, learn how to do projections and marketing forecasts. Now, that doesn't sound like, you know, what you should be teaching kids, but by the time they're like 12, 14 years old, they can learn that stuff. And where would you be? Where would you be if somebody taught you that when you were 14 years old today? Like, I would be sitting somewhere on my island petting a weird-looking cat in the nation of Jakistan, holding the world governments for hostage, I think, at this point, if somebody had taught me that at 14. Right? I'm not even sure Excel existed when I was 14. I think it was Lotus 123 was the preferred spreadsheet program. That's how old I am. But even that would have worked, or even the concepts I'm talking about. And you might be thinking, well, how do I teach my kid this shit? I don't know. Get on YouTube, type in how to use Excel, and you could find, if you look a little bit, a really great course. And if you wait until I get the show notes out for the audio version of this, I'll go find that course for you and put it in. I basically lived my whole life in sales and marketing using Excel every day. This course starts out really, really basic. But when I took it myself, I learned a shitload. And yet you could start from zero. And actually, you might be better than me then, because I self-taught myself so many things. And then you could teach your kids. Maybe take it with them together. Those of you that are like, I want to homeschool, but I can't. Again, stop saying you can't. Start asking how you can. But if you haven't figured the answer out yet, start doing shit like this. Make this your homeschool piece of their education, because they're not going to learn this shit in school. So how to budget, set savings goals, how to actually figure out the cost of things, and start out with something simple. Billy wants a bike. The bike costs this much. Even though you can figure it out with one line, put it in Excel, because Excel is like this magic thing that opens stuff up. Next, I would say put your kids in martial arts. If you're a homeschooler, great. Socialization, great. They're going to socialize. See if they have classes when the other kids are in school, and then that's really cool because your kids will be interacting with other homeschooler kids that are going to be kind of a little bit elevated in their maturity because they spend most of their time with adults instead of other children. And if not, it's fine too, right? But I think activities like that are great, but I think every kid should do a couple of years of martial arts. And I'm partial to certain things as an adult, but as a kid, I think the greatest skill set of martial arts you can give your child, especially in the world that we live in, especially if they're going to end up in schools and other places with other kids, is jiu-jitsu, because it is something that allows them to shut down something versus punch the hell out of somebody. It allows them to basically control the situation. And while I think there's some fundamental limits to grappling, in the adult world of danger, because while you're on the ground arm barring somebody, his buddy's going to come up and stab you in the back. It's still a great fundamental skill set, and that's probably not what your 12-year-old's going to deal with in middle school, right? So I think it really has kind of your red zone, green zone, that whole idea of de-escalation of conflict, trying to avoid conflict. But if there's going to be conflict, I'm going to take control of the conflict. But whatever, I think every kid that wants an edge coming up should learn to defend themselves, learn that it's right to defend themselves, and learn discipline in that. And if you've never had a martial arts course and you're 40, go take a martial arts course. And I would say even you start with jiu-jitsu. And then I think basic construction, including power tools. I think that is a huge gift you can give your kids. How to use, my grandson's 10. He's used a skill saw. He's used a sawzall. He's used a nail gun. He's used a chop saw. He's used drills. He's used drivers. I mean, like pretty much every power tool I have, he's used. Now, when I was a kid, when I was in, I guess, 6th grade, we had wood shop in 6th grade, 7th grade. I went through wood shop in high school to the point where I took both courses I could take. And then I was a shop apprentice for my last 2 years, which means I hung out down there, talked to the shop teacher, and helped other kids with their projects and built anything I paid for my own wood with. And that's really a valuable skill, so that I'm not a great carpenter, but anything that I need done, I can look at and figure out how it should be done, and I can do it. Or at least I can say, like, I don't have time to build this, but I know what the hell I should be charged, because I take the construction skill set, the bill of materials, the Excel thing that we talked about earlier, and say, I could build that, for $2,000. The guy needs to put $1,500 worth of labor. And if he's at $3,500, we're good. If he tells me $5,200, he can go screw, right? And being able to do that is not just about being able to do it for yourself, but be able to evaluate help. And that's just 5. And people might be like, well, not gardening. Well, because I always say that, right? So of course that, animal husbandry, whatever you can get the kid interested in. But my belief with children is you go ahead and you kind of dig in to stuff, and you kind of make them do some things. And then once they start doing some things, then you kind of like let them guide what they do. And if they're willing to pick something new, then you let them do whatever it is, even if it's totally divergent. But if they're not willing to pick something new, you pick the best fit you see for them, and they're doing that. And that gets the ball rolling. Next up, just a real quick thing. As many of you know, I haven't done jack shit with Facebook in well over a year. I trolled Facebook for a while, for about a half a year before that. So I haven't actually been on Facebook for about 18 months since I had a mental shutdown when they really started censoring this COVID stuff. And it's only gotten worse since then. It turns out that my Instagram account that my wife runs for me is linked to the TSP Facebook page, which tends not to get much activity because it's shadow banned. But if you get enough initial activity, it kind of then gets some activity. Well, as you guys know, a couple weeks ago, I had the great fortune to be able to interview one of my, kind of remote mentors and true heroes, Ron Paul. So Dorothy took a snapshot of our website, of the picture from that episode, and put it on Instagram. And then Instagram teleported it over to the Facebook page. And some jagoff in that post on the TSP Facebook page said something to the effect of, yeah, Jack says he doesn't use Facebook, but he'll sure advertise here to make money. Go screw. Now, I would have happily told this jagoff to go screw. But it turns out, because I actually haven't used fucking Facebook for that long, that I've been disassociated with my own Facebook page, and I have to go through some long fucking bullshit to even be able to post to my own page. But I did finally, after a day of fucking around, figure out how to disconnect and decouple my Instagram from my Facebook, right? So that won't happen again. But if a few of you could go call this jagoff out by name and let him know what a jagoff he is, I'd appreciate it. It's not real important to me, but I thought it was funny that people, and how long must this ass clown have hung on to whatever jack rage he holds in his heart? And all that means is I live rent-free in his fucking head. And I just, maybe rattle it around there a little bit for him. Okay, back on a serious subject. So many of you have seen, and I'm going to go to screen share here. Hold on. Still learning how to do this. That the IRS now wants the ability to track all bank transactions over $600, right? Now, I'm going to say, and here's the story on Yahoo News. It's a lot of other places. There'll be links to this in the show notes when the audio comes out. Don't get overly worked up about this, because it's not exactly a thing yet. And there's a lot of things these people say they want to do, they think they should be able to do, they never actually do. And a lot of times it's a good old-fashioned head fake, right? That may be this. I don't think so, though. I think they are really, this is one they're really going to keep hammering on until they can. But on one level, I do think it's a head fake, right? Because it gets everybody worried about it. Well, then what happens the day they introduce a central bank digital currency and basically kill off cash? Well, then they have visibility into everything that you spend US dollars on. If you spend US dollars on $5 worth of dog food, they have visibility into that, because your central bank digital currency will be attached to your bank account, because that's the only way you're going to be able to access it. And then you'll have an app that's kind of like a Venmo or a Cash App or something like that. That's your bank's wallet that will let you send central bank digital US dollars, Fed coin, the way that you would send Bitcoin or Litecoin now. And this is why, friends and neighbors, they're so heavy right now in like all the like eerie regulation shit that they're like trying to bring down the throat of crypto. They're not going after Bitcoin. They're not going after Litecoin or Ethereum, right? They're going after stable coins. If you think about it, they're kind of pounding on some of the alts that they're calling securities and say it's a security scam, like Ripple, which I hate to say this. They kind of like, if a company forms itself, makes a currency, comes out and pumps the other side of it while the founders are holding it and benefit by it going up, it kind of does fall. And it does. And if it gives you any governance control, like voting rights or anything like that, kind of maybe sort of in a pseudo way is, and maybe they have a point under shitty US law and code. But that's like one or two projects, right, that they're doing that with. But there's been a lot of buzz about regulation of stable coins. Well, the reason they would want to do that is, let's say that you didn't want to participate in this central bank digital currency world, but you weren't comfortable with the fact, if I'm holding Bitcoin, it goes up and down, or I'm holding Ethereum, it goes up and down, or I'm holding diddly do coin, it goes up and down. You want the stability of the US dollar. Well, then the stable coin is a massive threat to the stability of the US dollar. And if you kill off the stable coins, if you can, I'm not saying they can, but that's the goal, then you also get 100% visibility into all crypto trading that involves all stability in relation to the dollar or the euro or whatever. So you kill the stable coins, and then traders are told, look, you don't need USDC or USDT or whatever anymore. You can just like and you tell the exchanges that are the registered good boy KYC exchanges, hey, Binance, hey, Bittrex, whatever, all you guys got to do is implement CBDC, right? So you have US dollars now available on exchange. Since it's a crypto, which it's not, it's just blockchain based, it is seamlessly interoperable with your trading platform. Now you know every trade that every trader makes because it goes through your central bank digital currency, as long as they're parking in stability and then gaining from a buyback, which is what traders want to do. I don't necessarily want, if I'm buying and I see a new altcoin, you know, Charlie Daniels dog coin, and I want to buy $1,000 worth, then buying it with Bitcoin, if I have enough Bitcoin to allocate, is no big deal. If I like realize Charlie Daniels dog coin, I'm just doing that because my dog is sitting right behind the camera, is really just a speculative play. And I just know you people that buy doggy coins are going to buy it too. And I want to buy it, I want to sell it, and I want to buy it and sell it. And I want to do that a few times as it pumps. And then I want to go back into Bitcoin or something that makes sense. I don't want to go from doggy coin to Bitcoin to doggy coin to Bitcoin to doggy coin to Bitcoin. I want to go from doggy coin to dollars in some way. I want something stabilized that doesn't move. Well, friends, get on the crypto train, okay? I was nice about it from 2014 to 2021, as some of you still are holding out. Yes, I know it's in a bull market right now. Again, I know it's raging again. I know it's at heading back to all-time highs. I know I say not to buy at all-time highs, but you guys screwed around too long, because we're going to have stable coins, friends and neighbors, whether they're pegged to the dollar directly or not. This is an arms race of technology, and we're going to have decentralized exchanges. We're going to have swap sites. We're going to have things they can't control. And somebody will figure out, hey, you know, we can build stable coins off real estate. Guess what? They already have. When you can go into enough assets, and the assets have a projected short, long, and mid-term, you know, tendency to either stay stable or slightly go up in value versus down in value, you actually have a more stable situation, right? Because now you're pegging to an asset basket. So they're going to do that. So there's going to be a loophole out of this, but the longer you wait, the more they're going to know about what you have when you go to decouple. So get on the crypto train at least a little bit and do it soon, because this shit right here, this is what's coming. They're going to be able to track everything you do. And people are like, well, Bitcoin is like a surveillance coin. Stop listening to people that tell you shit like this. Bitcoin going through Lightning nodes with Taproot implemented will not be as private as like R or Monero, but it's going to be really, really close, especially for thousands and millions and thousands of millions of small transactions, right? Because we wouldn't be using Lightning to transfer like $50,000 to buy a boat, right? We're going to use Lightning to pay for the dog food and stuff like that, so we can have privacy in our lives, and we'll have other ways to implement that as well. So I think personally right now, that's really, really important. Next, I want to move to a totally different subject. I had Ken Berry on this week, and I want to talk about a new way to look at why you probably shouldn't eat certain things. And I'm going to stick to grains today instead of getting into fruits and other things like that, because the rationale I'm going to give you here doesn't really apply to fruits or many vegetables, but some others it does. But grains it applies to straight across the board. How about we come up with a new idea as humans as a basis in how we formulate our diet? And that basis is, don't eat foods that try to kill you when you eat them. Now, it's true, if you go out in the woods with a sharp stick and try to kill an elk, it will try to kill you back, and at 800 pounds, it'll probably win. That's not what I mean. I mean, once you have the food in your hand, able to shove it in your face hole, and you eat it, and you swallow it inside your body, does it attempt to kill you? Because that's what grains do. And here's an article that you can read, top 10 reasons why grains make you sick. I vetted the article. There's not a claim in it that's not true. Of course, use the first skill we talked about today, research, and verify it for yourself. But grains try to kill anything that eats them. And there's a reason grains try to kill anything that eats them. It's called evolution. So let's go back to you're eating berries. And most berries, by the way, are very low sugar things. Even if they taste very sweet, they don't have a lot of sugar. Go look up, for instance, a strawberry. We think of that as kind of a luscious fruit. Now, I'm not saying go eat 5 pounds of strawberries a day. Don't take it that way. But just go look up how many carbohydrates are in 2 ounces of strawberry. And you'll find it's not very much. So we're following the low-carb path if we're in that world. But if you eat a bunch of strawberries and you're a primitive man and you're running around in the jungle trying to stay alive, or the woods trying to stay alive, and you have to take a dump, so you go behind a tree so that you don't gross out your fellow primitive man and take a dump, and you leave behind a dump with strawberry seeds in it, there's a very good chance that a strawberry plant will grow there in the spring next year. In fact, it will be a well-fertilized, well-covered, well-cultivated at a right temperature and moisture environment strawberry plant. And as your dump, I know this is gross, but it's what happens. And birds do it too. They drop one from the air, and that's how seeds propagate, right? So the fruit wants to be consumed, either seeds and all, and go out that way because the seed doesn't get digested, or it wants to be kind of gnawed on and then left as a core somewhere and rot into the ground and propagate itself. So it benefits to an animal picking up, eating it, etc. What happens if you were able to, which you can't because you'll kill yourself, eat grain off the stalks? It won't propagate. It doesn't benefit. So the strategy cycle of some plants is I want to be eaten at some point, or I want part of me eaten at some point because it will propagate my species. The evolutionary defense mechanism of a grain is I want to make the things that eat me sick so they won't eat me because I can't survive if they eat me. So grains are full of toxins to humans' digestive systems. I'm sorry, I don't care what they taught you in school. I don't care if you're a certified nutritionist. If you research this, you'll find this out. So don't you think that we should look at all the things we eat and say, enough about this whole nutrient density. Do these foods contain what are known as anti-nutrients? And when you look at grains, they're full of anti-nutrients, and they're full of things that are designed to cause gastric distress and problems. And they also have this really mean coating on them. And if you did go into a wheat field and you just cut off the heads of like 20 grains of wheat and you started chewing on them, you're literally going to choke to death. As that stuff gets in your throat and causes you to choke, you have to separate it from the chaff. There's a lot of work that goes in to making a grain edible. You can't just eat it in its native state. Everything about it says, if you try to eat me, even though I can't think for myself, my innate intelligence as a being is designed to hurt you. And that means there was no way that that would be our natural species-specific diet. Just think about that one. And if you think I'm talking crazy, I'm not. Go ahead and research it for yourself. Next. Okay. This is one where I'm going to either be thought I'm pimping somebody or cheering somebody on, or I'm crazy. I think in 2024, I'm not guaranteeing this, right? This isn't like my strongman prediction and, 8 years later we get Donald Trump. But if I had to bet right now, who do you see in the general election head-to-head in 2024? It ain't Joe Biden. It ain't FJB. It ain't Heels Up Harris, right? JB gets one term as a puppet. There's no way this moron gets reelected. There's no way this moron stays at the head of his party unless the conspiracy is even deeper than I think, right? So Joe got to go at the end, and not like many of you are thinking like, I hate Joe FJB, right? No. I mean, like the Democrat Party by the end of this term is going to be like, we got to get rid of him or we're going to lose control. Harris couldn't win 2% of the vote in California in the primaries where she was a senator. Okay, so she does not have the wherewithal to win a Democrat primary. The guy I think that does, though it will be hard because there'll be a Bernie Sanders analog. Bernie's too old. Bernie's not coming back. I'm sorry. I don't think he's got it in him. He might, but you're going to have, it's either him or some, burnout replicant. But the Democrat Party gravitates to the center, right? Like they always say you run, if you're on the left, you run to the left in the primary and then you run to the center in the general. But if you saw what happened last cycle, the most moderate person historically, obviously not since he's been in office with somebody's hand up his ass, right, running him like a puppet, confused old man, but the guy that the Democrat Party itself, the average Democrat, right, thought, okay, well, yeah, I want to get rid of Trump because he makes me feel bad with his mean tweets. And out of the Democrats, this is the person I feel most safe with because 40 years of not being totally crazy, just being an idiot. Yeah, I'll go with that. Well, now he's like totally radical, right? So he did the opposite. He ran to the center in the primaries. He ran to the center in the general, and then he went to the extreme once elected. You generally do well as a Democrat, seen as a moderate Democrat at the presidential level. The person that fits that archetype right now the best in the mindset of those people is Joe Manchin. So it'll be Joe Manchin, a whole clown car of idiots, because everybody's going to pile on again. It's going to be another clown car freaking primary. It might be two clown cars, Republican and Democrat. And you're going to end up whittled down to like a Joe Manchin type and a Bernie Sanders type. And I think in that, Democrats move over to a Joe Manchin. And that's why Joe Manchin's doing all the shit he's doing and standing against his own party and he's like the freaking John McCain of the Democrats. I'm a maverick, right? Like the same shit. Or was that Palin that sent you? I think they both were mavericks, right? And this plays well in the Democrat heartland of the middle United States, the northeastern United States, with the working class Democrats. And once you win the primary, right, then the Democrats are going to fall in behind you and the Republicans the same. So I think you're looking at right now Joe Manchin on the Democrat side. On the Republican side, the guy that I think has the kind of the stones to win on the Republican side is DeSantis out of Florida. He's got a military record. He's got a great educational record. He was an officer in the Navy. He's had a great record in Florida economically. He's got a great record with people that are sick and tired of COVID. And if you think people are sick and tired of the COVID bullshit in 2021, wait until 2023 as we go into primary season and into 2024. Like people are really going to be fed up with it. And even a lot of people that have been kind of go along and get along people, when they see a way out, even if it's not real, they're going to grab onto it. So that's your heads to heads. And I don't think that this is 100%, but it will be something like that. Now, what about the wild card? What about the great pumpkin rising again? The orange man comes back. That could happen. And I actually think that Manchin's people are betting on it. They're betting if the orange man comes back, Manchin has a better chance against Trump than Manchin has against DeSantis. Because there's a whole group of people in the United States that are not extreme on either side. They are middle. They just hate Trump. There's a whole bunch of them that love him. I get it. But there's a whole bunch of them that, like, the man says stupid shit when he just needs to shut up. And he's not as smart as his supporters think he is. There's been so many better plays. He allowed himself to be surrounded by vipers. He never got rid of them. There's no reason to believe that if he came back and got in, he would clean house like he should have the first time. Like, the stupidity of bringing the regular crowd in with you from the GOP in all your key positions, the stupidity of leaving people running all the bureaucracies that you need to function through who worked for Barack Obama is extensive. I'm sorry. I don't care how much you like Trump. I don't care how much you like the fact that he's got a good sense of humor. He's a good speaker in his way. He makes it work from him. He's done some great things. He's one of the best presidents we've probably ever had from a functional standpoint, but he's probably the worst from managing his own image and making smart decisions about who works for him. So if you get that, and then you get this hatred core, and you give them a Joe Manchin who, hey, I stood up against the Democrats. I'm truly center. I can work with both sides. Manchin has a great chance. DeSantis, I think he has less of a chance, especially at that point. We'll see. That's just a prediction. It's not any kind of endorsement or anything for those that don't get it. Next up, I have a piece of advice for everybody out there that I really think we need to start following. I've been giving it to you since, like 2008 when I started. But stop giving attention to attention-seeking behavior in politicians and one-offs and things like that. I just saw something today. I already forgot the name of the company, so I'm not going to give them attention. But it's some big major brand. And their big announcement today is we have no plans to accept Bitcoin. So that's not a politician, but it's the same shit. Do you know what that is? That's attention-seeking behavior. Everybody's talking about Bitcoin. We don't have the stones. We can't get our board on board with it. Whatever reason, we're not going to do anything with Bitcoin in the short term. But marketing sitting around going, how do we get people to talk about our archaic freaking company that nobody really cares about anymore? How do we get in the news? I know we'll talk about Bitcoin, but we'll say what we're really going to do, which is we're not going to touch it yet. And then we'll get in all the Bitcoin news feeds, and then that'll get picked up by like Reuters and all of the syndication services, and then that'll get us all over. People will talk about us because nobody's talking about us. There's so much of this right now. 95% of marketing, and remember who was a professional marketer for a lot of their life. 95% of marketing is just attention-seeking behavior. Politicians are nothing but marketers. They're marketing brand me, right? So when some politician says some stupid shit that's really stupid, right? Like, I want to give citizenship to all dogs, right? Like something stupid like that. All they're doing is saying something radically stupid enough that it will be picked up and rebroadcast so that you'll be outraged by it, because then you'll pick it up and rebroadcast about it. And their people, their handlers, have already figured out that this person represents this Looney Tune district that doesn't care about this thing. And it won't damage them at all, but it will broaden their brand, right? And you say, well, it's negative. What did P.T. Barnum say, right? Right? I'm not even going to tell you. Do your research. What did P.T. Barnum say about bad publicity? And something to do with spelling my name correctly. I'll leave it at that, right? Like, that's what's going on. And we need to stop this. I've been on my own wife about this lately. She'll be like, did you see this? Did you? I'm like, I don't even care anymore. But it's a COVID vaccine. I was like, I already know. I've been telling people this shit for like 9 months now. I know. Like, no one that's not awake is willing to wake up. Go on with the important things in your life. Stop giving attention to attention-seeking behavior. If you have a child and it's not going to hurt anything, it's not like running into walls, and it's throwing a tantrum, and you have the time and the patience and the ability to do so, the best thing to do with that tantrum is nothing. Let the tantrum play out. Let the child realize the attention-seeking behavior is not going to work. If they run in the bedroom and they hide their leg between their knees and they wait for you to come get them, because since the tantrum didn't work, maybe receding into themselves and being aloof will work, and that doesn't work, then they have to come back into the real world and adjust and become a mature person, right? And they have to realize, like, this doesn't work. Start treating politicians like what they are, spoiled fucking children. Next up, I want you guys, with all the supply chain shortages and everything that's been going on, if you're not doing so already, start thinking really hard about producing your own meat in some way, shape, or form. If you're suburban, and when I say meat, I mean fat and protein, right? So that could be a flock of birds that gives you eggs would be a good place to start. But if you're suburban, kind of your place where you can't have a Billy Roy screaming and chickens making all kinds of noise or something like that, I think quail or rabbits. If you're a little bit more urban and you can do it, a nice flock of laying birds. If you have a flock of laying birds, if you can have a rooster, you can produce chicken for meat really, really well by making basically your own hybrids. And the way you would do that, and the way Jeff Lawton does this, by the way, pick a really great production bird that's a large-bodied bird. Something like a production red, a red sex-link, right? That would be a great bird. Then go get a rooster or two. You'll have to cull one if you get 2 or 3, right? But like maybe you want to look for a personality in your rooster. So if you're not like me and you're breeding for pretty, that's what I'm doing right now, but you're breeding for body and size, and maybe you want gentle temperament, get yourself a few roosters, pick your less dominant rooster, make coq au vin out of your other roosters. And now you have a large breed rooster, say something like a Brahma, right? Or a Buff Orpington or something like that, but a different breed. Now breed him, let him take care of your hens. It's okay, Charlie. Let him take care of your hens. And all your offspring are going to be F1 crosses. And you're going to get a much larger breast portion, leg portion, etc. And it almost doesn't matter what you do. Pick a high production, large-bodied bird for your hens and pick a different large-bodied, don't even worry about egg production for your rooster. And then you just kind of reboot that as you need to. Breeding those offspring back to each other may or may not work out well for you, but you will start to see the hybrid vigor drift over time. But that's a strategy. And I would start forming coalitions of people. If you have somebody that can raise like 4 pigs a year, start trading chicken and rabbit for pig. Maybe find somebody that can do some cattle. Maybe you got a guy near you that raises cattle and he can raise 30 or 40 head and he's going to sell most of it. But maybe you can talk to him and maybe you can have like, 8-quarter beef be within your network. But start thinking this way. Start thinking this way now. All this like Impossible Burger shit, Bill Gates freaking crap, all of this is only going to get worse. The solution we know is holistic grazing management. All of the environmental problems, if you want to solve them, start replacing corn and wheat fields with fields of perennials and start grazing it and start feeding people the most nutrient-dense food there is in the most regenerative system we have, but they're not going to do it, so you need to. Do something with it. Do it now. Those are my 2 big takeaways today. 3, do your freaking research on your own. Don't trust anything anybody says. Number 2, get into some level of meat production. Number 3, if you're not in crypto, you are in severe danger of falling behind. You're running out of time. Get involved in crypto. Ease your way into it. Be careful. Don't put money into it you can't afford to lose, but put something into it and learn the skill set and start understanding it better. A great place to start, guys, get into MeWe and get into our crypto practical discussion group. I'll get a link into the audio notes today for you as well on that. Join that group. It's the best crypto group on MeWe. It's over 2,000 members now, I think. Most of them are out of our people, right? They're our community. I'd say 80% are TSP guys. So you can trust them. There's going to be a lot of answers with, I don't know. That's how you know you can trust somebody. And then there's going to be a lot of really great answers too. All right. Last thing before I take questions, and I'm going to take questions in all cap. I really need to reiterate this. Stop letting someday fables distract you from what matters, especially in the world of politics. This idea there's going to be a red wave in 2022, man. Maybe. And you know what? Maybe it will make some of the problems lessened, but we're going to still have all the problems that we've always had in the world. And you know how I know that? Because I'm 50 years old. I have seen a Democrat in the House and Democrats on both sides in Congress. I have seen a Republican in the House and Republicans on both sides in Congress. I have seen any mix you can come up with where they're holding one side of Congress and the White House and not the other, where you have both houses of Congress and split with the president. I've seen every configuration within those 3 that you can get, and I've never seen in America where we didn't have all the problems that we have now. Maybe we have more severe versions of them now, but a lot of that's natural progression. If you're printing money decade after decade after decade, all the economic problems are going to become worse. All the inability to afford things is going to become worse. And unless they're going to change the entire economic system, it's only going to get worse. So all the someday shit, folks, all that one day we'll be able to take it back, right? No, you won't. The only way you're going to take it back, you're not going to do it collectively. You're going to do it for yourself. You're going to do it by getting rich. Somebody asked me recently, I was talking about how when you build an asset portfolio like real estate or cryptocurrency, that eventually you can build enough asset portfolio that constantly accumulates value and you can have a great income for the rest of your life, leave a ton of money to your offspring, to your prodigy, and never pay taxes because you can borrow against it and leverage debt and then re-leverage it over and over. So as the asset value increases, you can take one loan to pay off the other loan, and you can constantly pay yourself a good salary every year, but it's not a salary, it's debt, so you don't pay any tax on it, but the assets actually repay it. He said, I understand that, but how does the average Joe participate in it? You don't. That's not what average Joes do. You want that life? You want that life. You want a life where on Friday morning you're sitting and talking to like the best friends you've ever had or not had online, right? I mean, you're running a community like I am, or you want a life where you're living somewhere in the woods by yourself, but you're able to pay for everything you need this way passively. You want a life like that? Let me tell you, you don't do it by being average. That doesn't mean you can't be average and then do it. What it means is you cease being average and you start striving to be better than average. The average person doesn't do this, and thank God, because if everybody did it, it would stop working. But half the people could do it. And then maybe it's pseudo average. I don't know. But for now, you have to stop thinking average. And I'll take questions now if anybody wants to start dropping them for me or anything they want me to talk about. This is interesting. Feral Hog Coin from Mike down near Houston. He says Feral Hog Coin. That'd be cool. Feral Hog Coin would definitely be cool. You'll get my attention with all caps on the stream. I would also just like, people say like, how can you start a business? What if you got yourself some land that had feral hogs on it, started feeding the feral hogs, started trapping the feral hogs, started when you trapped them, like sized them and let certain ones go, and then just started selling feral hogs to all these niche restaurants in Texas so that they can have wild boar. Even if you built a simple processing trailer and did 100% ground meat, so they could do feral hog sausage and things like that, right? There's one cash flow idea out of that, and Mike just made me think of it. I'm trying to get you to start looking at anything and start saying, how do I monetize that? How do I monetize that? Our first comment today was from my buddy David. David says monetizing thing is your superpower. It really isn't. My superpower is teaching. That's my real superpower, is teaching. Monetizing things is actually so easy. Anybody can do it as long as you can throw the switch in your mind. And then you end up saying, here's all the things I can do to monetize the things in my life right now. Which one can I get working the quickest with the least amount of effort and the least amount of risk and do first? And then you get that one going. And then the second one, instead of saying, let's do that analysis again. Okay, now I've got one going. Assuming I have enough cash flow in my life to live, then my next question is going to be what? Which one of these has the highest ROI? Because now I know the process. So now I want the highest ROI. And then I'm going to evaluate my third thing I can monetize, right? And the more streams of income I can monetize that way, the better off I'm going to be. Josh doesn't have a question, but he used all caps, so he gets featured on the board. Jack, you're an asshole. I just turned in my notice. Side hustle is now full-time hustle. Thanks, asshole. Josh, thank you for sharing that, right? That's so awesome. Every time I hear something like that, right, it's my payday. Like money, I don't love money, but I don't hate money either, right? I like money. I like money, right? Idiocracy. I like money too, man. What are the odds of that? I'm wise with money and what have you, but I still want more. Like I'm still building my legacy, but for my needs, I don't worry about money anymore. And when you stop worrying about money, you start worrying about things that really matter. And what really matters in my world is what I'm doing actually impacting somebody's life. And you can have people that hate me, because if you don't have haters, you're not doing anything as a content creator. You have to have haters. The most popular content creators in the world, the people with big brands behind them that have millions and millions, like a Joe Rogan, right? That was paid $40 million for his show by Spotify. People that big, they have haters. So if you have no haters, you're not doing anything, right? Like I don't care what haters say. But when a hater says something like, well, you're not actually impacting lives, when you have something like the comment on the board right now, I'm leaving my job, my side hustle turned into a full-time income. My employer can go screw. I don't care about their mask mandates or the vaccine mandates. Like none of that shit matters anymore. It's incontrovertible. And that's my payday. Tom says, I'm giving Tom special dispensation, even though he didn't use all caps, because he's my web guy. And so he gets special dispensation. He says, what's a good recipe for rooster? Made under him. Hayes Anderson says coq au vin. So if you've never heard of coq au vin, it's French, and it basically means cock, as in rooster, with wine. And basically it's a way to slow cook your tough birds with some wine, and just look it up. And it's COQ and then space AU space VIN for those not on the audio. Wicked Stepmother says, thoughts on investing a little in Shipcoin? Good idea on a small scale. No doggy coins, no shit coins, right? And I'm not the guy that tells you everything that's not Bitcoin is a shit coin. That's not me. When people are buying this shit because it's being pumped as a brand with no underlying functionality that really enables it to do something that something else doesn't already do, you're going to get wrecked. You're going to get wrecked. And the worst thing that can happen is you can buy some kind of shit coin like a Shiba Inu coin or Doge coin or whatever. And because it gets pumped, it goes up. And now you think you're a genius. And now you start taking more risks that don't make any sense, right? These things, like what I would say to anybody is, well, what about fill in the blank coin? What does it do? And how is it different? And what is its utility? If you can't answer those three coins, I don't even want to give you an answer. I want to say, go find out that. And if you find out that it has no real utility, right, it doesn't do anything differently, and it doesn't work any differently in some way that enables it to have an advantage over its competitors, and you still want to ask me if you should invest in it, you're not ready for investing. And I don't care if it's a small amount. That small amount could be sitting in Bitcoin that is going to do exceedingly well in the long term, and that small amount could become a very important amount long term, or Ether. If you're asking that question, I guarantee you're not sitting on at least one Bitcoin and let's say 5 Ether yet. And if you're not doing that, then all this other shit's white noise. I know you want the big score. Go read Richest Man in Babylon and read it like it's a Bible. And when it starts to repeat itself, because it basically tells the same principles 3 times, because that's how many times it takes to get in your brain and matter, and it starts to repeat itself, you say, I already know this. No, you don't. Keep reading it, or at least listen to the audio on it. Can we leave for vacation already, says David. David and I are going to Florida. No, dude, we can't leave until it's time. And you get less days because you're greedy and you didn't want to leave work for long enough, and you're taking less days and you won't be there the entire time. So you have to wait longer than me to leave, and then you're going to leave before I leave, and it's all your fault. And you should get there when we do. You should stay the entire time, and you should fish every morning with me, and you're going to be a much happier man. But you do what you got to do, brother. Food Bear says, in Texas, having land next to state lands is endless supply of hogs. He's correct. And actually, that's a great strategy if you want. Like, I would rather have wild pigs and a couple feeders on my property, but not have to have my property sustain the pigs, right? Because if you go into like private ranch territory where everybody's got high fences and sells to deer hunters, you need to buy thousands and thousands of acres to make that work, because that land is sparse, or you need to feed every day. But if you live somewhere near state land, state forest or something like that, that has hogs on it, and you have 20 acres now, and you set up 3 or 4 feeders and you feed, and what you can do is you can feed deer and hog. Basically, you put a low fence around your feeder, and you throw corn where it goes under the feeder and past the fence both, and your deer will come in and jump the fence, and the hogs will eat all the feed around. So now you have deer during deer season, but pigs anytime you want, and you're fattening them with corn. That's a good thing, because they're going to forage plenty. It's not like they're living on the corn. And then all you need to do to trap your hogs, right, is that low fence. You open it and build a door, and then you put a game camera up, and you just time, like, when are the most pigs inside the fence, and you set a timer for the door. You don't even need a trigger, and you just say, well, it's at 3:30 in the morning. That's when the game camera says my best odds are, and you have all 3 of your deer feeders with the fence open, and at 3:30 in the morning they go, and at 6:30 in the morning you grab your cup of Joe, you walk out to your feeders with a pistol, and you go bang, 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 bang. That's enough for today. And then you open the door and let all the little ones go back into the woods. And it's totally legal because they're feral hogs. That seems easier to me than dealing with pigs every day. And how could you be more regenerative and natural than that? I don't know. Let's see. Wicked Stepmother says, thanks, Jack. Your words are appreciated, and you're correct. I'm very green in the crypto world, and I'm working to educate myself. I'll check out that book. Please do. Richest Man in Babylon, by the way, was written during the Great Depression. It has nothing to do with crypto, but it has everything to do with crypto. Because every time you read the word gold or hear the word gold in the audio of Richest Man in Babylon by George C. Clawson, which should be required reading by junior high school if we're going to have public education, by the way, which we don't. We have government education. If we had real public education, George C. Clausen's book would be required reading by 6th or 7th grade. Right? A 7th grader is old enough to understand. But when you read it and it says things like rent your gold, because that's how you use it. That's basically, at the time, he was saying put your gold in the bank and gain interest on it. And then when you see good opportunities where you can loan somebody that's trustworthy and make a better interest rate or better return, rent your gold. He's talking about investing in businesses. When you see all that, just change gold to Bitcoin. And it's one of the best treatises on how to look at Bitcoin you will ever see. And it's a good story. It's written, as a story, as a fictional story, placed in ancient Babylon, etc. CJ with SEAJAY, not CJ like CJ. Have you ever fished the east coast of Florida near Smyrna or Mosquito Lagoon? I have not. I did fish the east coast of Florida a lot as a kid near Jacksonville, Duval County area, inlets, the beaches, all. Fishing Florida is fishing Florida. Like the species change as you go further south based on seasonality, but it's all the same. Just learn to fish, learn to surf fish. And in Florida, if you can surf fish, start timing the tides, the seasons, the fish, the patterns. You can catch fish anywhere in Florida. If you starve in Florida and you own a fishing pole, you haven't learned what you need to know. You should be able to put fish, in the cooler 90% of the time you go to the beach. If you also look at, what time of day should I be fishing today? What should I be fishing for, et cetera? It doesn't really matter. One more. I'm going to do 2 more. So if you have an all caps one, get it up soon. David says, David Pritchett, what is your opinion on geese as a grazing high-fat content poultry versus pecans? Trying to find a good source of growable, raisable cooking fat. Okay. The goose is the perfect animal for what you want to do. If you have good grass, you can put goslings on grass, even if you have to brood, at about 2 to 2.5 weeks. You might have to put them in tractors and give them like a brooding lamp and run an extension cord. By about 3 to 4 weeks, you can let them, graze. Just let them go. And unless you have enough that you really need to control them with paddock shift, you can just free range them, as long as you have protection for them from predators. And you can train them like tucks, really easy. Come here and be protected at night. And you can go in 11 weeks to harvest size, purely on grass, maybe some feed when they're goslings really early on until you get them eating that grass. Now, you're going to need to graze them to do that the way you do cattle. You're going to have to. You're going to have to, because you can't have them on even a lot of grass, but in poor quantity. So you may have to mow areas for them. You want to do that whole take down a third and that initial, those forbs of regrowth, those fresh regrowth. That's what they want to eat. That's where the protein is. That's where it's sweet for them. That's where the carbohydrates are that put that wonderful fat on them. And if you take them to about 14 to 16 weeks, they're still tender and they're going to put a lot more fat in their skin for you. The downside with geese, in my experience, they're much more difficult to hatch eggs from. I don't know why, and you get a very narrow window. So if you have a source where either you can produce your own goslings, you take the time to learn what I haven't, and you can reliably breed your own birds in enough quantity to do what you want, or you have somebody near you that can, because buying them from feed stores in the mail, they're way too expensive to make this financially sustainable. It is the best bird. The number 2 bird to do this with is a duck, and it's like a duck goose, right? They have a lot of attributes of geese. It's the Muscovy duck. And that would be not as optimal as the goose for the speed of meat production, the amount of fat, etc. But, dude, if you can't get like a Drake or 2 Muscovy and get like 8 Muscovy hens and reliably produce new generations over and over and over again, I don't know what you did, man, because those things are incubating, breeding machines, man. And they can forage so well that you can really, on an ongoing basis, you can really do very little for them. Like if you feed them enough to keep them around, you could just in the fall just figure out how much culling you want to do. Train them to go to bed somewhere so that you have a way to funnel them when they need to be culled. As they start growing and putting feathers on, I highly advise, while they're still easy to get your hands on as babies, clip their wings because they can fly for freaking miles. But once you get them in that state, you just figure out everybody you want to cull. Who do you want to cull out of your old crop? They kind of stop producing eggs in the fall altogether. They produce 2 big clutches of eggs. They kind of go bursty. So early spring and mid-spring, and then no eggs. So hatch as many as you want, or let the girls hatch. Take as many eggs as you want. Dehydrate, freeze dry, etc. Freeze the extra eggs, and then in the fall, harvest as much as you want to harvest, and then cull your old group and bring your younger group in to recharge wherever you think you need to do. And the drakes, if you give them a full, like 3/4 year to grow, your drakes are 14, 16, 18 pounds. And if David's still on here, you can go ahead and tell him in the comments, David, how delicious, like thin sliced, dredged in a little bit of fry matter, and then deep fried in duck fat, a scuvy breast is. It's sublime. I got one more I'm going to give here. Gorilla Press says, Algo Rand pirate coin thoughts. Sorry if I'm late and you covered it already. I didn't. Again, everything I'm about to say, you're in the speculative world of altcoins. Get to the left of the decimal, at least one full Bitcoin, and get somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 Ethereum for now, because Ethereum is probably looking at the end of this cycle. Raoul Paul, who's one of the people I trust the most from an analytical standpoint, says the end of this cycle, not the end of this year, the end of this bull cycle that we're in right now, Bitcoin may be looking at like 40,000. And I don't think that's far off. And he also says Bitcoin will probably be at the end of that cycle about 400,000. He's saying that end of cycle is probably somewhere in early Q2 2022. And then we don't have a huge fall off like we did before. Like it's more of a leveling and a drawdown. And then we kind of go into like a steady long-term trend for both of them. Whether or not that all plays out that way, I don't know. But let's say he's half right and Ethereum goes to 20 grand and Bitcoin goes to 200 grand. That's enough upside when you're getting in the door. So Algorand. The reason I'm involved with Algorand, or I should say I own some Algorand, pays an interest rate. So I don't have to go into DeFi and like somebody else custodying my shit to have some of my money earning interest, right? So that's nice. When it's earning interest as proof of stake, it's not locked. Some other stuff I do hold is locked. Like it takes 20-something days, 28 days or 21 days to release Cosmos once it's staked. So there's this time lag. So I can freely trade my Algorand. No one custodies it for me, and it earns interest. It's lightning fast. And if you go to Algorand's website, look at their news, they're literally announcing a new partnership that's significant every single day, and they have a ton of money for marketing. So it's a good low-risk, low-dollar alt that makes sense. And I look at it more like this is a risk play, but it's also like free DeFi that I can self-custody. And there's no lock, and I don't have to do anything. I just hold it in an Exodus wallet, and it stakes. That's literally all you do. You buy it, you send it to an Exodus address, the wallet you control, it's your keys, so it's your coin, and it just starts making you like 5.5% interest. Pirate Chain, totally different reason. Pirate Chain I'm holding because it's invisible. And I just had somebody say, but they can see if you buy it. Well, if you buy it on an exchange and they can see you have an account there, they can absolutely see that you bought it. If you did KYC to buy your Bitcoin and you used Bitcoin to buy your Pirate Chain, they can actually see that Bill bought, $5,000 worth of Bitcoin, and then he bought $5,000 worth of Pirate. And then from that point, you know what they see? Absolutely fucking nothing. It now is invisible. And if they want to say you traded it, you spent it, you made money on it, it's up to them to prove that you did. Because, well, we want to see your Pirate Chain. No. Well, we're going to take it. Go ahead. Well, we think you did this with it. Prove it. It's gone, like a fart in the wind. It cannot be seen. It is invisible. Good luck, right? You want to crack it, you got to crack Litecoin, you got to crack Cosmos, and you got to crack Pirate Chain all at the same time, simultaneously synchronized. Good luck. You guys are still trying to figure out what the hell Bitcoin does and what Lightning is, and Taproot's about to go up your ass. So Pirate Chain I hold because it's invisible money. Algorand I hold because of the technology and what it represents from a network standpoint. And I look at Algo as the way the people that hold Algo get compensated for providing the security that all these projects use in their blockchains, many of which are financial, many of which are not, many of which are just like public records on a blockchain that's secure. We're not trying to hide it from anybody. I want to be able to look up who has the title to this home or property or house. And I want to put the title companies that are complete scams out of business. That's what Algorand does. It's also getting into the NFT space in a really creative way. Anyway, with that, guys, I went an hour 5. I promise you an hour on these days. My grandkids are here. Since I got a late start, since I was out watching Aaron Lewis last night, didn't get home till after midnight. I'm usually in bed by 10, guys. I believe in getting my rest because I'm an old man now. I got up a little later, started a little later, so my grandkids didn't show up behind me like they're going to on usual basis. That's how I'm going to know when I'm done. I need to go spend time with family. I advise that you figure out how to do that as well. We got a weekend coming up, and should be fun. Take care, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks for participating in the show. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm loving the shit out of doing these Fridays this way. I think this is such a better plan than the way I was doing Miyagi mornings and putting them back together and doing them every day. I was working way too hard, way too long, and not enjoying the fruits of my labor and not seeing to what needs to be seen to around my property. I have some people coming over this weekend to help me kind of fall cover crop plant the gardens. They didn't produce jack shit this year, honest to God. They really didn't, because I put so much into this that I didn't care for this the way that I teach you guys. This is the way I'm adapting to that. And it is 9:08 a.m. I'll have the audio of this out by 9:30, 9:40 at the latest. I got the rest of the day to be with my kids, be with my wife, and figure out if Billy Roy is going to survive one more weekend. He probably will, because he makes pretty babies. With that, I'll catch you guys later. Again, thanks.